Well, welcome to the Modern Metabolic Health Podcast. My name is Dr. Lindsay Ogle, and I'm a board certified obesity medicine physician. And I am so excited today because I have a real life patient, Deb, who we met through TikTok actually. And I was really interested in what she had to share with the general public about her experience on a GLP-1. So I asked her to join me today to share more about her experience and what GLP-1 medications have, how they've enhanced her life, and what her recommendations may be for, some patients who are considering starting a GLP-1. So thank you so much, Deb, for taking the time and being here.
My gosh, thanks for having me. I love your content on TikTok. I think most of us on TikTok who are users of the medication so appreciate seeing actual doctors talking about this in reality and not scaring people, really talking about it as honestly and openly as they do and as you do. So I really appreciate it. And I'm happy to be talking to you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, let's start at the beginning. How long have you struggled with your weight and I guess, eating issues in the past, or what brought you to starting a GLP-1 medication?
I think when I was really young, I was a very, very picky eater, and I was, a twig until I was probably, when I hit puberty. And when I hit puberty, I I hit before my sister was a little over a year older than I am, and she probably didn't hit puberty until a year and a half after I did. So it was very strange to be just turning 12. I think I was just 12 when I started to get, breasts and, got hips. And now, my parents, parents do the best that they can, but I think they saw this and they saw this as they began to be concerned. When a kid is changing and growing in puberty, it's all different kinds of I don't know, lots of changes and the body changes. And they were concerned, though. They seemed to think that this was something that needed to be controlled. And they put me on my first diet. And at the time I was a little under 5'7", and I probably weighed 128 pounds.
Huh.
So not anywhere near a place that someone should be concerned. I realize this now, but at the time, when you're living in a family system and the family system says you should be making some changes, everybody else is like this, and you seem to be interested in different foods now, and they put me on a diet. And I often will say that I didn't really start to get fat until I went on a diet. And that's when it began. It was sitting at the table while other people were eating something, and I was eating a modified version of that. And, the table was eating normal stuff, and I was eating um, and that's when I started to hide food. I would hide things. I was in my high school class, we did a fundraiser, and I remember we did a fundraiser selling candy bars, and who bought the most candy bars? I did. I did really well. Yay, the fundraiser did really well. I would hide and just eat these. And I don't even really love candy bars necessarily, but I did. And that's when it started. It was the up and down and up and down. And that's when I started to actually started to feel uncomfortable. And so I would do what I thought I should do, which was restrict. And then I would restrict, and then I could only restrict for so long. And so that started the whole cycle, and it went on, I would say, most of my life. But every time I couldn't lose enough to get myself to what a doctor would say, we'd be happy if you were around here. And then when I would gain way more than I did the last time. So it was that a very typical story. I think you've probably heard it a million times. I'd lose a little and then I'd gain more. And I'd lose a little, gain more. And it was just always going up. And I want to say about a year and a half ago, I thought to myself, you just have to accept that you are going to be an overweight person for the rest of your life. You have to accept this. I was heartbroken, but I just didn't see, I fought it for so long. I did everything I could think of. And yes, I would have success. I would get to a somewhat normal weight. And my doctor would say, "Oh, I'm so happy. This is great." And then the next time I'd come back, she'd say, "What happened?" And I'd say, "I don't know." And that was it. And about a year and a half ago, I thought that's it. Accept it. And I was heartbroken, but that I'm like, "You're a fat girl. That's it."
Wow.
And
Yeah.
well,
Well, thank you for, being so vulnerable and sharing, that your experience. And I can't even imagine, at the age of 12, when you said you were 5'7" and 120 something pounds, which is definitely not overweight, but and your body was going through puberty and having natural and healthy changes. And so, I mean, you were starting to look different than you did before, but that doesn't mean that you weren't healthy. But with that change, I guess, triggered, your family, thinking that they were doing something to help you and
yeah,
putting you on a diet. And it sounds like the doctors that you were seeing too also encouraged that. And then that really, set you down this path of chronic dieting and, the weight fluctuations, which can be both emotionally challenging and triggering. And
yeah,
it can lead to mental health conditions and struggles, but also it can affect you metabolically and then make it even more difficult to maintain your weight long term. And like you said, that you are definitely not alone in going down that path. That is extremely common, and a difficult thing to manage. It sounds like for decades then.
oh yeah, decades, yeah. Because excuse me, Vanessa, edit.
Mhm.
um, yeah, I just hit my Medicare birthday, and so if I was I was about 12. It's been 50 some years,
Wow. Yeah.
long time.
Yeah, yeah, like whole lifetime almost.
Yeah.
What has been the difference between all of those diets that you've been put on or that you put yourself on in the past over the 50 years compared to your experience being on a GLP-1?
It's night and day. It's like I've used the analogy of Dorothy walking out of sepia, Kansas into Technicolor Oz,
Mm.
because um, it is a different world to me. This medication, I was a relatively quick responder, not in terms of weight loss, but in terms of having a different experience in my body once the medication started. I'm on Zepbound and I started on 2.5, and with 2.5, I know it's a loading dose. I was feeling it within days.
Mhm.
Um, I remember when I first started hearing about these medications, I didn't think I was sick enough. I thought this was for very sick people, diabetes. And I was always a person who kind of carried I seemed like I was a big girl. And my doctors never said, this is dangerous, this is dangerous. And so I didn't think I was sick enough for the medication. And then I started to hear things that made me think, well, maybe I don't need to be that sick. Maybe I could. And so when I did start to use it, or when I did start to hear about it, I remember the first time I had no idea what I heard, in one of these articles that I read, something about food noise. And I knew exactly what they were talking about. I had never considered that what was going on in my life. of the constant thinking about food, of the feeling that, I mean, I used to say I felt like I was a bottomless pit. I could out eat anyone. I really felt like I could out eat anyone. I never felt full. And I would go to meals with friends and I would see, I'm a slow eater, and I would see people saying, "Oh, I'm stuffed." And they'd push their plates away. And I think, well, I guess I have to stop now
Mhm.
because, and so being a slow eater, one, and two, being, always feeling like there was always more, I was never full. So I'd go out to eat. I'd be thinking about where I was going to stop on my way home because I obviously hadn't eaten enough. Um, and there was no such thing as enough. When I went on the medication, the food noise just like immediately, like within days, I realized I could go to the grocery store and I wasn't negotiating with myself about which aisle I could or couldn't go down or what I could or couldn't. I was just getting what was on the list. And I wasn't planning my outings for stops along the way.
Mm.
Um, and I was having satiety. I would stop eating and I think, yeah, I'm good. Like who am I? I did not know who this was. And yeah, it's been night and day. I mean, I could talk about it for hours. There's so many examples, but that probably gives you an idea of what it's been.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I also have several patients who respond very well, like you did, at that quote unquote like starting dose or loading dose, at for Zepbound the 2.5 or Wegovy 0.25. And sometimes people never need to go to higher doses. It really is individualized, and I always emphasize that.
Oh,
If
yeah.
you're seeing somebody who is making you follow like a titration schedule, regardless of how you're responding, that's not the right person you should be seeing, because everyone responds differently to every treatment that we offer, in medicine. And so you should be on the dose that's working for you, then that you tolerate. And for some people, that's that starting dose, and that can be their maintenance and treatment dose. And so I do see that. And then I have some people who don't experience what you're describing until they get to higher doses. And that
Yeah.
can also be really discouraging because, um,
Heard that.
yeah, and you can feel like maybe this won't work for me, and it doesn't until we find that dose, that does work for that person. So it's all individual.
Yeah.
Um, I
It
also.
did.
Mhm,
Oh, I'm sorry. It did eventually after, I think after about 3 months, I started having food noise come back a little bit and I felt a little bit. So I did go up and I'm now, almost 8 months in and I'm on 10.
mhm,
So I have had to go up. And every time, what's fascinating to me is every time I get to the point where I have to go up and food noise comes back in, or I get a little bit more, like I feel a little bit more hungry, or I'm thinking about food a little bit more, I'm not as satisfied, I turn it back in on me. Like, you're not working hard enough.
mhm,
You have to, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? And then eventually I'm reminded, oh, wait a minute. This is the disease
mhm,
and the medication has hit its wall and it's time to go up, because the natural tendency is to think I'm doing it wrong and I have to work harder because that's what it always was. It was always, you got to work harder, you got to knuckle it in. It's like, oh, wait a minute, that's what the medication is for. The
mhm.
medication does what the medication does, and it's time to go up. So it's been that's been a great learning thing too, just to notice how I respond when it starts to, even if after a week I start to get a little bit, I'm getting close to the shot day. I find myself a little bit, thinking about it a little more, a little munchier or whatever. Oh, okay. It's almost shot day. You're not a bad person. you know?
Right. I'm glad that you brought that up, because that's the difference between diet mentality, which is all about, yeah, like you said, white knuckling it and the amount of effort that you're putting in and restriction and just the number on the scale or the calories that you consume that day, versus treating a chronic medical condition like obesity is. And, if you're having symptoms or that are not controlled, or, things are progressing or taking a step back, then presenting to your doctor or whoever is helping you, on this path, a dietitian, and letting them know what you're experiencing. And then they can adjust the plan for you. Because those are two totally different approaches and will get you in a completely different place ultimately. Because if we're treating it like our other chronic conditions and we're keeping health at the focus, then it does still take time to get there, but you will get there. And for all of my patients and sometimes myself in general, it's hard to, like, diet culture is so pervasive, so it comes back in, and we do have to, like, reprogram our brain to get away from it, and keep that, I guess, like, chronic disease mindset at hand.
Yeah, it's so easy to flip back into that. I spent most of my life in that.
Mhm.
And even though I'm, I eat a lot of really great food, but I still eat a lot of stuff that I would, you know, a friend of mine said to me once, we went out to eat and she said, "Can you eat that?" I was having a vegetarian Reuben. So, basically it's cheese and sauerkraut on a grilled rye. And she said, "Can you eat that?" And I said, "I can eat anything I want. I just want a lot of things less, and I want a lot less of a lot of things."
Mhm.
So it's just, this thing is magic, and I'm not dieting myself into this healthier life. And if it takes me a really, really long time, that's fine. As long as this thing is not, you know, constantly telling me to, and I'm not like this,
Mhm.
I don't care. I feel free. I feel freedom.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's what I was going to mention earlier, because you stated that you felt like you were not sick enough, but yet what you were describing was like was suffering. It sounded like you were suffering in your mind, and constantly fighting that food noise, and that chronic dieting, and these medications can help manage that, and can treat that, the brain side of things, and can provide that freedom.
Yeah.
And I've heard many people say, like, even if I never lost any weight on the medication, it's worth taking it because of the freedom and relief that
Yeah.
you get. And I always like to talk about, like, when you aren't having to constantly think about dieting and restriction, then your brain is free to think about other things, and you can enjoy, your life so much more. So I'd love to hear what your thoughts are about that.
I absolutely. Oh my gosh. I feel like the majority of my attention in my life, even if I was doing something else, even if I was at work doing a job, even if I was with my family having conversations, it was always there.
Mhm.
And so, you said how I was saying I didn't think I was sick enough. That was because the world told me that I wasn't sick, I was weak.
Mm.
People told me I couldn't, you just didn't have the tenacity, you didn't have the willpower, you didn't have the strength. And I would I mean, it's something that I've learned since from all of the community members on TikTok. There's so many of us who are accomplished in so many ways in our lives. And yet we thought we were failures because of this one thing. This one thing negated all the other accomplishments, or at least diminished the other accomplishments. And they diminished mine, but they also diminished my capacity to be successful. There were certain things I didn't even throw my hat in the ring for because I was so ashamed of how I looked, or mostly how I looked. Um, I wouldn't throw my hat in. I wouldn't try for things. And now I'm amazed at the capacity I have to try new things that I'm not even giving a lot of thought to. I'm not saying, I think I want to do a thing. And this is how I started. I now have a Sunday Live that I do where I interview members of the community. And it started just because I was curious. I was curious about members of the community. I wanted to find out more about them. And so I started inviting people on a live as individuals instead of big group lives and things like that. And now it seems to be a bit of a thing. It's not a huge thing. It's a thing, but and it's not because I planned it or I said, I want to do this because I want to grow my reach or I was like, I want to know people. And now I have and that's the capacity. I mean, it's just the capacity to follow my curiosity and to nurture that curiosity and to be open to what unfolds because of it. I didn't have that before. I didn't have the space. I was too busy thinking about, you shouldn't have this, don't have that. Well, maybe you should plan this. Don't even try that. Nobody would want you because of how you look. It's like, oh, heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Heartbreaking. What a waste. What a
Yeah.
waste of spirit and energy and all that.
Yeah. Yeah. Heartbreaking and exhausting. Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, and I know, so we're both on TikTok, like we talked about earlier, and that's how we connected. I started social media like from a professional standpoint to educate more people because there's so much misinformation out there.
Yep.
And I read an article one time where like it's like doctors we can't complain about the misinformation if we're not going to put ourselves out there and then try to combat it with accurate information. So I viewed that as a call to action and put myself out
So
there.
glad you do.
It's been scary, but it's been fun. And I've met so many people like yourself and like you're describing that you've connected with so many people in the community. I've also learned a lot from people sharing their experiences that sometimes either my patients don't tell me directly because they're nervous or ashamed, or maybe it's a different patient population. I'm not quite sure. But one of the things that I learned because you were mentioning it, that people were mentioning to you that they were taking or considering taking a break from their GLP-1 medication during the holidays. Right now, the holidays are past us, but I still think it's relevant for anybody who maybe is planning a vacation or has, an event coming up that previously would be a time when they would, maybe overeat or use food to like that was the highlight maybe of that event or that vacation. And they're maybe nervous about not having that option or maybe getting sick if they do overeat. I'm curious. I know you gave some recommendations in that video that I commented on, but I'd love to hear you now kind of re-explain your thoughts about that or what's been your personal experience with in that situation.
I saw a lot of people posting about this as well. But what I felt when I first heard somebody say, I'm going to take a break, and I thought, break? Why would we take a break from this thing that has changed the way we think about food? I mean, I would be at a meal, a family, like this was happening around Thanksgiving, I think is when it happened. And I would be at Thanksgiving and I would just constantly be thinking about, um, I want more of the potatoes, but I only want the potatoes with gravy. And if did people see me put some on my plate, or can I put some more on my plate, or what do I do? And can I have some of that? And I'd be watching other people and I'd be like, they don't have as much on their plate. And my mind would constantly be surveying the room, or, oh, I'm the biggest in the room, or what, all that stuff. Why would I want to put myself in a position where the freedom that I have now, I can have everything I want. I can have every single thing. If I go on a vacation, I can have what I want. I can go. I mean, I don't go on a cruise, but I know somebody who went on a cruise and they said they weren't going to take. And, why would you can have a little bit of everything on the cruise. Doesn't matter. Have a little bit of everything. But this is the other thing is okay, there's the, why would you not want to be free? The freedom to have whatever you want, but not eat as much. Okay, that's one. The other to me is This is medication. This isn't a tool to help you diet. This isn't a tool to continue on with the whole diet culture thing of like eat less, move more, which of course we do in a way with these things. We do eat less and, moving is good. And so we start to have capacity for that. But this is a medication. Why would you wouldn't stop taking your beta blocker to enjoy something? You wouldn't stop taking your inhaler with you because it will be more fun to not have your inhaler when you go on. This is medication. What are we've somehow, and it doesn't surprise me that we collapse it with diet culture because most of us who are on this medication are losing weight. And so we think of it as like, oh, yay, it's, and people talk about, oh, I've lost this much, or isn't this great? I'm, hitting my goal. But that's not all that it's about. We want to get healthier. We want to be well. And this medication helps us be well. I don't understand why you wouldn't take medication to help you be well and to continue to have that freedom. That was just my take.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And like we talked about before, it's really highlighting the difference between that diet culture and then treating a chronic condition. And I myself have definitely used the term like GLP-1 medications are a tool. And I've had some pushback from people before about that. And I'm starting to see that more actually, especially now when you're describing that it's probably not the best terminology to use because it is so much more than that. Because I think when we do describe it as a tool, that does still support that diet mentality that it is all about restriction and moving more. So, and I really like analogies. I'm gonna have to think about another one, or we just, call it what it is, chronic medication.
But I think it is, but it also is kind of a tool. It's a tool to help you like get, I mean, I don't know, maybe it's not, maybe it isn't. I use the term tool too sometimes, but maybe not so much because it's not a tool for dieting. It's a tool for helping to stabilize your chronic condition. That's what the tool is for, not for the diet.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. We got to play around with that one, maybe.
Yes. Let me know if you think of anything.
Okay.
For sure, for sure. Or a tool to like enhance your life, expand your life, like we were talking about before, and taking out the focus of food and focusing on, the enjoyment of being with loved ones or, exploring and traveling and just like really being present, like you were describing before.
Yeah.
I'm curious if anybody is considering a GLP-1 or maybe they get coverage this year and they're going to be able to start the medication finally. What would be a piece of advice that you have for them or something that you wish you knew when before you started?
Well, a few things that I think I wish I knew. One is that you shouldn't compare your experience with other people's experience because everybody is different and everybody is going to react differently to this medication. And so as long as you do what your provider, your doctor says, and you're taking the medication and everybody will say, drink a lot of water, focus on protein and fiber and those sorts of things. Absolutely those things. But when you compare your experience with somebody else and you compare based on the number on the floor, on the scale, that is just, to me, that's something to like really practice, moving away from that, and really thinking about your own experience on a day-to-day basis of what is different for me. I'm a big journaler. I encourage people to journal. I think noticing what the milestones are in the experience, like, oh, I didn't have food noise today. Yay, that is great. But it doesn't have to be about comparison. And The other thing that I would say is, you know, the body may move faster than your head can catch up. As a matter, when I was getting dressed this morning, I'm wearing like like a little shell underneath this shirt. And I put that on and I was, tucking this thing in, this overshirt on. And I looked and I went, who is that? Like I didn't recognize my body. My body has changed, but I still feel like the person of 20, 30, whatever pounds ago.
Mhm.
It's going to take a while for the head to catch up. And I think sharing your experience, being being among other people who have a similar experience, the TikTok community is great. I'm sure there are other places for it. I was never on TikTok before this. I found TikTok because there were people who were talking about this, and I was looking for people who were talking about it. And I went, oh, geez, I got to get on TikTok. Now here I am, But I think finding a community of people that are talking about it, that you can hear and recognize that you're not the only person going through this and the only person whose body is going faster than maybe your brain can catch up is a helpful thing. And again, I say journal it out because I think that's wonderful.
Great. I think that's an excellent piece of advice that doesn't get talked about as much as not comparing, because I see that really getting in the way of a lot of people enjoying the success that they are having. That I can see that they're obviously doing so well, but they often automatically think that they're not doing well because somebody else, I guess at least looks like they're having success at a faster rate.
Right. Some people, start to lose really, really fast, and other people don't have any, loss, or they still have food noise in the beginning. It takes a while with some people, and some people have to change medications. They start on sema doesn't work. They try, it's all, the one thing I remember hearing is you didn't fail. Sometimes the medication isn't the right one.
Mhm.
And so to be open, you know, talk to your providers, talk to your provider, talk to your team.
Mhm.
You know,
Yep. Yep. Going back to that individualized approach, because everybody is different and unique.
Yep. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Deb, for taking the time and also for being so vulnerable and sharing your experience. I'm sure people are going to want to find you on TikTok, so I have your handle in the notes below, so everyone can get out and follow you and join you on your Sunday lives.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I love to talk to people. I love to meet them. So have them come on. Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to thank you because I think that what you're doing is so huge, and having actual doctors, obesity medicine specialists who are sharing the reality is just so helpful. We're so happy to have you out there talking. I know that I'm not the only one who follows you and just loves seeing you come out with your content. It's really helpful, and we so appreciate it. I should just say I appreciate it, but I know a lot of us appreciate it.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.